Hello, good evening everybody and welcome to the video. Today is St. Patrick's Day. It's the 17th day of March 2025 and it's around 7:15 in the evening, and I'm making this video to show you about what Channel 4 Dispatches programme. For those of you who don't follow Channel 4, their Dispatches programme is normally about a half an hour programme. Runs on the lines of Panorama on the BBC. They do like an investigation. And I believe it was in March of 2019, they did a series on slum landlords. And a particular episode that aired in March, I believe, of 2019 was entirely focused on sanctuary housing and the way it treats its tenants. And I believe today, 17th of March 2025, that sanctuary housing, in my opinion, are certainly deserving of that title and much, much worse. So my story begins, I guess, way back in 2008, in May of 2008, beginning of May. So we're talking near enough 18 years ago. Now what I'm going to tell you this story is going to be rather long, and it's probably at times going to sound more like an Agatha Christie novel, but I assure you the story is 100% true, although in saying that, some of the dates may be out by a year or two because of the 18 years or so time scale that's elapsed between when I became a resident here at Sanctuary Housing Property in Dawlish in Devon and to the current day. So I guess the story starts it's on a Thursday the 8th of May 2008. I was offered this property, a one-bedroom flat in a block of flats in Dawlish, and I signed my tenancy agreements in the kitchen. I had a friend with me, and and things went wrong from day one. The place was in a filthy, disgusting state. The walls were so thick with dirt and grime you could write your name in it. And I contacted the local housing officer at the council for the area's Teambridge Council, cover basically half of South Devon, and they told me not to move in. There was live electrical wires in the kitchen, which if you touched you would have been electrocuted. There was the bathroom door did not shut properly, but didn't shut at all. There was no connection to the communal TV area, and as I say, the general state of the place, it was a pigsty. And so I moved back out again, and I signed a tenancy agreement in the beginning of May, maybe 8th, and on bonfire nights the same year, November the 5th, I was in court, my first court appearance, because I refused to pay the rent on a place I wasn't living in. I wasn't living in it, by the housing officers of Teambridge Council, not Sanctuary, declaring it unfit for purpose, and yet they still wanted to charge me rent. And that's very important, Matt, because my 18 years old experience with these cowboys, is that's all we're interested in: money, rent. They couldn't give a damn about anything else. So when I moved into a Charlton House in Dawlish in May 2008, it's a block of there's 2 blocks here. It's a total of 30 flats. So I live in the block which houses flats number 1 through 16. You've got a mixture of 1-bedroom flats, 2-bedroom flats, and I believe there are 1 or 2 3-bedroom flats. So quite a large complex. Each block is on 4 floors. So for example, my block, on the ground floor, flats 1, 2, 3 and 4. My floors 5, 6, 7, 8, then obviously 9, 10, 11, 12, and then 13, 14, 15, 16. Yes, there is a flat 13. So when I finally moved in, I believe it was the middle of July. As I say, they took me to court and they lost. They tried to get quite crafty really, because I always, when I face a legal problem, I have no legal qualifications whatsoever. But what I am meticulous in doing is doing my research. And they issued me with an intention to seek possession, outright possession of a property. In other words, they wanted to evict me. And I can always remember on November the 5th that at the Torquay and you'd have a county court. There was me on my own, and there was a sanctuary star, the barrister was there, and two or three people representing sanctuary about the eviction. And I can remember the judge, and I believe her name was Judge Meredith. And this sort of, again, I guess I've got to be difficult in my language here, but I guess it's safe to say when you go into court and you see a judge with a female judge with purple hair, then you're you're thinking, what sort of court is this? At least I did anyway. But the judge sort of said that because I was in rent arrears, I owed about 10 weeks rent. I think I paid the first week rent when I signed the tenancy agreement, and I never paid again. And so what we did, I owed around, I think it was around £1,200 in rent arrears. So about 13 weeks rent arrears I owed. But the law says that when a landlord housing association, in this case a social landlord housing association, go to evict somebody on the grounds of non-payment of rent, what they have to do is, when we issue the court papers, so first of all they give you 2 weeks notice, an intention to sue, like an intention to evict you, and then after that 2 weeks have expired, then they can issue proceedings in the court to have you evicted, and that's what Sanctuary did to me. And so what I did was, I had the money, of course, and what the law says is that you have to be 8 weeks or more. This is Section 8 of the Housing Act, the grounds for eviction, grounds for terminating an assured tenancy, non-payment of rent, 8 weeks or more. But the important thing I discovered was on the day they issue the court papers, so the court stamp date, you have to be 8 weeks or more in arrears, and on the day of a hearing you have to be 8 weeks or more in arrears. And my arrears were 12 or 13 weeks from memory. So what I did was, the day before, so that was on a Thursday, on the Wednesday, the 4th of November, I had to go to 4 pay points. I had a payment card. You go to a pay point and pay your £80 odd a week rent, whatever it was, back then. And you go to court, you go to the pay points, and I had to go to 4, 2 in Dawlish and 2 in Newton and Timoth, about 2 miles away, and I paid all the shred money. So the judge, I stayed quiet, and they went first, and they gave the grounds, and the judge says, "I'm sorry, but it's they have to abide by the law, and there's no leeway. The judge has to evict you, has to grant a possession order to the landlord, Sanctuary Housing." So I said, "But you haven't let me speak. You haven't even heard anything from me." I said, and the judge said, "What do you have to say?" The judge with purple hair. And I said, "Well, I believe I don't owe this money." So what I did was then, I produced for 4 receipts, and the 4 receipts totaled the 100% of arrears, plus 1 week's rent in advance, plus £1. So therefore, case dismissed, because the receipts clearly showed they were paid the day before the hearing. So therefore, on the day of the hearing, my rent arrears had been cleared. Indeed, I was. And I joked to the judge. I said, can I sue for the £1 they owe me because I paid £1 extra? I did it deliberately, and the judge said, well, no, because you haven't made a counterclaim. But you ought to see their faces. They had spent thousands of pounds in all their legal nonsense. And, it was the beginning of I was going to say love-hate relationship, a hate-hate relationship between me and Sanctuary Housing. So it didn't go right from day one. Eventually I settled in. I began living here full time at first. And the flat above mine were two young lads, I guess probably mid-20s, early 30s. Although I never saw them, I just went by what other people told me. And I knew they were a gay couple. And obviously I have no issue with them being gay. I'm transgender myself. Those of you who've watched my videos before know I'm a transgender woman, so I have no problem with people's sexuality whatsoever. But they kept themselves to themselves. But they weren't here very long after I moved in, so I would say within 12 months they were gone. And it was a one-bedroom flat like mine, and they were replaced by a new tenant. Now, before I continue with this story, for obvious reasons, I have changed the names of the people involved in this story, for obvious reasons. So, all the events are 100% accurate, true to the best of my knowledge. As I say, the dates may be a year or two off, going back, 18 years. But the names of all the individuals bar one, and I'll explain as the video goes along, that hasn't been changed. All the rest have. And the story, to the best of my knowledge, is 100% true. So after the two gay lads moved out, a lady who I'm going to call Sarah moved in. Again, I used to hear she was quite a noisy person because her flat's right above mine, so I'd hear banging and bumping. But it wasn't middle of the night or anything like that, so it wasn't anything to complain about. It was just annoying sometimes, And but I never met her. But I knew from gossip, as people do, that she was a drug addict. And at some point, I'm not sure, I guess Sarah was a tenant here for, I'm going to say 3 years. That's estimated 3 years she was here. And at some point, she took in a lodger. And the lodger we're going to call Kevin for this story. Kevin is the lodger. And they became boyfriend, girlfriend. I'm not sure, I don't know whether they, I presume they must have known one another prior to Kevin moving in as a lodger. But I'm not sure, I don't know whether Kevin was already Sarah's boyfriend when he moved in. What the circumstances were, I don't know, and it's not really important. But Sarah was the tenancy holder and Kevin became the lodger. A short while later, Sarah tragically died. Now, Sarah was a drugs user, and that's not gossip, that's fact. And that is fact because she died in her bed, in her flat, and the post-mortem revealed she died of illegal drugs. I don't know whether it's heroin or cocaine or whatever. Illegal drugs overdose. She accidentally overdosed and died. And it was obvious to me at this time of her death that drug dealing was going on at that property, at Sarah's property. Now, the reason I know that is because we were having people coming around at unusual hours. I want to say unusual hours, you're talking 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and obviously being a block of flats having a door, which at the time had a lock, people used to bang on the door. And it was people, obviously customers, wanting to buy their drugs. And if they couldn't get an answer from Sarah's flat, they would ring other doorbells. So just imagine it. Let's say they rang flat number 10, for example. And they'd wake up the occupant of flat number 10 and say, oh, this is 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh, I'm trying to get hold of Sarah or Kevin in the flat they live in. And yeah, and that was a regular occurrence. At least once a week that went on. And the visitors all hours of the day and night. So it's not rocket science to know what's going on. And then, as I say, when Sarah sadly passed away due to a drugs overdose, Sanctuary, in their wisdom, decided to give the lodger, Kevin, the tenancy. Now, it was quickly established once he had signed the tenancy agreement that he was dealing drugs. Again, the activity around the place was evident of that. He was dealing drugs. Over many years, over a decade, people complained about him drug dealing, including me when I was here. This wasn't my only home. Those of you who watch my previous videos know that I spent a large quantity of time with my parents. I also had a partner who lived in Brighton, and we have 2 adopted children. We're both transgender, so we adopted 2 children but now both teenagers. So obviously my life was quite complicated. I was coming from, working in Brighton, had living with Brighton, a partner, 2 kids. My dad fell ill, so that's why I came back to Devon. I'm originally from Devon. That's why I came back, and obviously there was no room at the house where my mum and dad live, because my brother lives there also. And so I drew the short straw. I gave up work. I went from full-time to part-time, and was spending 3 or 4 days a week looking after my very poor father. And then sort of after my dad passed away in fact it was just last Monday we went to his grave, and it was the 5th anniversary of his death. He died on the 10th of March of cancer in 2020 in Torquay Hospital in Torquay, long battle with cancer. And then after he passed, Mum started to become ill, so it ended up me spending best part of 15 years plus looking after my mother and father as their health declined, and they both eventually passed away. So back to the activities here of Kevin. At some point, another lady appeared on the scene. But before I talk about her, there's just something I'm going to talk about first of all. Going back to the May when I signed my tenancy agreement, there was, unknown to me at the time, another transgender woman, and her name was Andrea. That's her real name. If you remember at the beginning, I said I was going to use false names for the other people, but use her real name. And she was what I would describe as an evil, nasty piece of work. And the reason I say that is she was a trans woman, and I became friendly with her because obviously we had that in common. And she also had a lodger who I'm going to call Emma. And we worked together. Now, I knew Andrea for about 12 months, 18 months, something like that, before she literally done a runner. She disappeared one night. Middle of the night, we're talking about 10, 11 o'clock at night. Packed a van and drove off to South Wales to live with her mum. Emma left her lodger, Emma, in her own. Then a letter came through the post shortly afterwards, and it was a date for an eviction notice. And it said that this scumbag Andrea, who told me herself, when I was friends with her, that she was a convicted criminal. She had an antiques shop in Torquay, in Devon, and she swindled a lot of customers out of several £1,000s. And she told me she had a suspended prison sentence. I'm not sure that's whether she transitioned before or after that, but she told me about herself. And obviously doing a runner, owing over £2,000 in rent, is not on. And of course, we have Emma, who was the lodger, now having to stump up the rent. And I was friends with Emma, and she showed me the letters, so I know the letters to be true, the eviction notice to be true, everything to be true. She even showed me a rent book, did Emma. And this rent book showed that for several years she had been paying Andrea £50 a week rent. I mean, the rent for the flat was less than £100 combined, so she was paying half. They worked together in a care home in Dawlish, did Emma and Andrea. That's, I believe, how they met. They worked in the same home, a care home. And Emma asked the landlord if she could take over the tenancy. The landlord refused, and poor Emma was evicted from the property. I'm going to say 2014-ish. I could be a year or two out, as I say, it's a long time ago, and I didn't write things down, didn't document things, because I knew it would never turn out like this. But it became evident to me because I was quite close to Emma. When she was evicted, I did store, because I didn't live here all the time at Charlton House, I did store a huge quantity, must be 20 boxes of her stuff, her personal belongings when she was evicted, because she had nowhere to go. And she ended up sofa surfing for a while. And I never saw her again. As I say, Andrea cleared off, and Sanctuary then got possession of the flat, and the bailiffs came in and evicted her. So, but she was sofa surfing. Those of you who don't know what sofa surfing is, that means you have no fixed address, no fixed abode, and you rely on friends to sleep on their couch, bed settee or bed sofa or whatever, or just literally a mattress on a blanket on the floor, basically. That was how she was living. But at least she was working. But one thing that ties, if you go back to Kevin the drug dealer, is that both Andrea and Emma were also drug users. And Emma told me this. And her supplier, she got her drugs off, yes, you guessed it, of Kevin. So Kevin supplied Andrea and her with drugs. And eventually, Emma lost her job at the care home in Dawlish. And the main reason why she lost her job was because of her drug addiction. And so she was homeless. Literally, she was living on the streets. Poor woman, probably around, I would say around my age, probably around 40, 45 at the time. A bit younger than me, because I'm, 61 this year. So she was homeless, living on the streets. And then one day, in Dawlish, when I was in Dawlish, news began to circulate about a dog walker. A Miss Dog Walker was walking early morning, taking my dog for a walk on the beach at Dawlish, and he came across some rocks at the beach, at the bottom of a cliff, and this dog walker was greeted with an awful sight of a woman who had obviously fallen from a great height, the top of the cliffs, onto these rocks, and her head was smashed into pieces. An awful sight. Obviously Emma was dead, and we'll never know whether it was an accidental death, whether it was due to drugs, whether it was suicide. No one will ever know. But again, the connection is Kevin. So don't forget, now we've lost Sarah, his girlfriend, and now we've lost Emma. Both connection to Kevin are they were both drug users, and he was their supplier. So that's Andrea, who's cleared off, drug user. Emma's now dead, following on from Sarah. So 2 dead women. So where are the police? Where are sanctuary housing? Where are the powers that be in all of this? 2 women dead, knowing through several reports, me included, reporting several times, and others reporting with dealings being woken up all hours, to sanctuary housing, and they did nothing. The police did nothing, sanctuary housing did nothing. Absolutely incredible. And so life went on. And then another woman, who I'm going to call Amy, appeared on the scene. Amy, again, I was quite close to Amy. She was a mother of 4 children. She was 40 years old, and all her 4 children were taken into care because Amy's story was very tragic. She was born a drug addict. Her mum was a drug addict, and she was born addicted to drugs. And I know that every day, Monday to Saturday, at just after 9 o'clock, she used to go down to the Boots pharmacy in Dawlish to have a methadone prescription. Every morning, Monday to Saturday, she had a methadone. So, and she was a drug user, and she became... Again, I don't know what the pull is on this Kevin character. He's not a very good-looking man, due to the drugs, obviously. He's 6 years younger than me, so he'll be about 55 now, 55, 56 now. 60, 61 in April, and I don't know what the pull is. So now we have Amy becoming the girlfriend of Kevin. Now, an incident happened, again I'm going to say 2014, between Kevin and Amy. Now, boyfriend, girlfriend, living in the same flat. She's using, he's using and dealing. And what I found one night, it was on a Thursday night. Thursday seems to be a popular day. And it was the end of January. I'm going to say 2014. It could have been 2013, it could have been 2016, I'm not sure. But I'm going to go somewhere in the middle. 2014, I'm going to say. When I was sat in my armchair, around 8:15 on a Thursday evening, when I suddenly heard a woman scream, "Help me, help me." So, what do you do? Normally, rows, obviously living in a flat above mine, you hear everything, you at night time you hear, if you get up, if you need to use the loo in the middle of the night, you get up, say 2 o'clock at night, and you go to the toilet. If you come into your lounge and sit down, you can hear people talking up, because they're obviously awake because they're doing drugs, so you can hear them talking, you can hear what they're saying, so but this particular Thursday night, the end of January 2014-ish, this help me. So I went out to obviously investigate, and what I witnessed shocked me to the core. I saw Amy being dragged by her hair down concrete steps, communal steps. So I'm on floor 1, they're on floor 2. So obviously there's a staircase between the two, and she was being dragged. Her back was on the ground. Her hair being pulled by her hair by Kevin down concrete steps. I had to physically separate the two. I had to put myself at great risk. And obviously I had no option. I had to dial 999 for the police. I must say, both Kevin and Amy were totally out of it. They were so drugged up, it was unbelievable. Kerry, thankfully, Kevin was shouting at Amy, saying, he's calling her a stupid so-and-so, he's going to lose his flat now because of this and all the rest of it. And I dialed 999, the police. I can remember the time, I've got good memory for times. It was on the Thursday night, end of January, it was at 8:16 p.m. I told them what was going on, the call handler, and she told me to go into my flat. First of all, try and get Kerry into my flat, lock the door, and do not open the door to my flat until the police arrive. There are 5 blue lights on the way, is what she said. So Amy did not want to come into my flat. So I just waited for the police. They didn't show. So at precisely 8:30, I remember the time. Help me, started up again. So I rang Devon and Cornwall Police a second time, 999 service. Don't forget, I rang them at 9:16. So this is 9:31. This is 15 minutes later, and I said, I'm going to get a kitchen knife to protect myself, and I'm going to go out, and if I have to defend myself, I will defend myself. I'm not prepared to sit here and do nothing while someone potentially is being murdered. A maid told me not to do that, but I'll be silly to do that. And just as I was about to leave my flat, one lone police officer, a PC Ray Fachney, arrived on the scene. He is the community beat manager. A total, complete and utter disgrace, I may add, to the Devon and Cornwall police force. And he typifies why society as a whole hates the police in general. And he came along and he arrested Kevin and pepper sprayed him and handcuffed him and led him away to the van. A short while later, a second lone cop came, and what we did was, because for some reason the communal staircase, so that's from the first floor to the second floor, was covered in photographs, thousands and thousands of photographs. So what I did was, I'm a police officer, I went into my flat and got 2 big bin liners, and we picked up all the photographs, thousands of them were, and put them into the 2 black bags. Amy was hysterical. Her face was an absolute mess. Her right eye was completely swollen and shut and bruised. She had cuts and grazes on her face, and I remember saying to her, "You're going to have a shiner in the morning." She probably had a broken nose. I'm not sure. I'm not a medic, but I guess that's what happened. And Kerry was hysterical. Not the fact that Kevin had just beaten her to a pulp, but Amy was hysterical that her boyfriend was being arrested. I never understand that, but that was it. So we gathered photos, and Amy just picked the photos and disappeared. She just vanished. But whilst we were waiting for after Kevin had been arrested and taken away to a police van in the car park, Amy showed me her back, and half a skin on her back had been ripped off. And I can only imagine it must be the effects of the drugs, whatever she had taken, had nullified the pain, because she must have been in absolute agony and her face was a complete mess. So after this had happened and things had calmed down, the second police officer came into my flat and he asked me would I make a statement. And I said, well, what's the point? I said, Amy will just say she walked into a cupboard or fell and slipped and banged her head or something. Million and one different reasons. She was hysterical, but her boyfriend was being arrested, for goodness sake. And the police officer said to me, but with my visual evidence, seeing her dragged by her hair down concrete steps, and with his visual evidence, seeing Amy's face battered and bruised and seeing her back, that would be enough to convict him. And because he had previous, he would probably go down for 6 months or more. So I gave a statement that night. So he was, after things had calmed down, it was way past 11 o'clock by then. I went to bed, and the following morning I was woken about 7:30 in the morning, with Friday morning, and it was from a female officer who said she was the custody sergeant at Torquay Police Station. And she explained to me that Kevin obviously would be released on bail at some point later today, the Friday, and that part of his strict bail conditions were he was not to contact me directly or indirectly. Meanwhile, being a Friday morning, I have no problems with that. This is where he lived. He lived here, did Kevin, so he's entitled to come back to his flat. And the police assured me that over that weekend, they would make sure I was okay. They would be in contact. Now, I didn't expect a police officer to come knocking on my door, 2 or 3 times on the Saturday and the Sunday, but I expected perhaps a telephone call, a 30-second phone call. Hi, Miss Show, it's PC Fatesney or PC Joe Blogs, whoever. Just checking everything okay. Any problems with Kevin or anybody else? And I would have said no. All right, well, fine, that's okay then. Just let us know if there's any problems, or we'll wing tonight. We're winging at 8 o'clock tonight. Nothing. They did absolutely nothing. The police. They left me on my own for the Friday, the Saturday, and the Sunday. So I don't know. So Monday, I attempted unsuccessfully at first, but I was persistent. I ended up withdrawing my police statement. So I'm going to leave it there for part 1 of the video. I don't want it to go on as one part for over an hour, because you probably all fall asleep. So that is part 1 of this video, and I will be posting a part 2 of this video shortly. Thank you for watching, and feel free to leave any comments in the comment section down below. And as I say, part 2 will be coming shortly.